Long before humanity became the masters of this planet, we were just another animal, hiding in the dark, shivering through the night. But then, everything changed, and it didn't start with us. Fire was conquered by our ancestors, Homo erectus, nearly 1,000,000 years before Homo sapiens even existed. Imagine a world where your entire day is consumed by a single, exhausting task: chewing. Before fire, early hominids spent up to 8 hours a day chewing tough, fibrous roots and raw, rubbery meat. Raw food is incredibly difficult for a primate digestive tract to break down, meaning our ancestors had to expend massive amounts of energy just to digest their meals. Because digesting raw food required so much internal machinery, early hominids had massive, heavy guts and relatively small brains. Then came the spark. When our ancestors learned to keep a fire burning, they stumbled into the greatest biological shortcut in evolutionary history. They dropped raw meat and tough tubers into the flames, and the heat did something extraordinary. It began breaking down proteins and complex starches before the food even touched a tooth. Cooking essentially functioned as an external stomach, outsourcing the mechanical work of digestion to the campfire. Suddenly, food tasted better. It was packed with easily accessible calories, and the heat sterilized deadly bacteria that used to kill early humans by the thousands. With cooking doing the heavy lifting, our species no longer needed massive, energy-draining digestive tracts. Over hundreds of generations, our intestines physically shrunk, freeing up a massive surplus of metabolic energy. In the brutal math of evolution, that saved energy had to go somewhere, and nature redirected it straight to our heads. Our brains exploded in size, expanding rapidly because we finally had the caloric fuel to support billions of new, power-hungry neurons. But fire did something even deeper than changing our anatomy. It completely rewrote the human schedule. In the wild, when the sun goes down, the world becomes a terrifying place filled with apex predators that can see perfectly in the dark. For millions of years, the setting sun meant one thing for primates: climb a tree, stay perfectly still, and pray you aren't eaten before dawn. Fire changed the rules of the night. A single campfire created a dome of bright light and intense heat that predators absolutely refused to cross. A glowing wall of flames kept massive Ice Age cave hyenas and roaring saber-toothed cats at a safe distance. For the first time in evolutionary history, humans could sit on the ground after dark without being terrified. This completely doubled the usable hours of the human day, turning the cold, hostile night into a safe, warm sanctuary. And it's right here, sitting around the glowing embers, that the most important shift in human history occurred. During the day, humans were always busy hunting, foraging, making tools, and running for their lives. There was zero time to just sit and exist. But at night, sheltered by the flame, there was absolutely nothing to do but wait for morning. For the first time ever, humans had idle time. They had time to think. As they stared into the dancing, unpredictable patterns of the flames, their newly enlarged brains began to wander, imagine, and reflect. The campfire became a social magnet, pulling the tribe into a tight, face-to-face circle. In the bright daylight, humans communicated in short, practical bursts about where to find water or which bush had berries. But in the intimacy of the night, bathed in a warm orange glow, language transformed from a practical tool into an art form. This was the birth of storytelling. The very first narratives weren't written down. They were spoken into the night air around a crackling fire. Elders began to recount the great hunts of the past, passing down vital survival knowledge to the younger generation.
They shared maps of the landscape, warnings about dangerous territories, and accounts of changing weather patterns, all woven into memorable tales. But human imagination didn't stop at reality. As shadows flickered wildly against the dark cave walls behind them, minds began to fill in the blanks. Those moving shadows looked like spirits, gods, and mythical beasts dancing just beyond the light. To explain the terrifying forces of nature, like thunder, earthquakes, and the stars above, humans invented myths. The campfire became the altar where early religion was forged, binding tribes together through shared beliefs and sacred rituals. This collective imagination created a deep sense of tribal unity and identity that allowed humans to cooperate in larger groups than any other primate. But the idle time around the fire didn't just spark religion, it sparked deep curiosity about how the universe actually functioned. As humans looked up past the rising smoke, they noticed patterns in the night sky. They watched the moon change shape, trackable night after night, and began counting the days between cycles. This regular observation, born from having nothing to do but look upward, laid the absolute foundational bricks for mathematics and astronomy. They realized they could predict the changing seasons by tracking the stars, turning abstract firelight thoughts into practical survival calendars. Back on the ground, staring deep into the coals, humans began to contemplate their own existence. They asked the earliest philosophical questions. Who are we? Where do we go when we die? Why does the universe exist? Philosophy wasn't invented in a university. It was argued by stick figures, keeping their feet warm against the night chill. Fire also became humanity's very first laboratory, introducing our ancestors to the basics of material science. They noticed that soft stones placed near the intense heat of the fire cracked open to reveal sharp, glass-like edges perfect for tools. They discovered that wet clay, when left in the hot embers, baked into hard rock substance that could hold water. This accidental discovery of ceramics changed everything, allowing us to store food and transport water across vast distances. Thousands of years later, that same intense heat would be used to melt metals out of rocks, launching us directly into the Bronze and Iron Ages. Every single piece of advanced technology we have today, from the steel in our skyscrapers to the silicon chips in our phones, can be traced back to those early fires. Without that biological and psychological shortcut, we would still be primates sitting in trees, spending our days chewing on raw grass. We didn't just discover fire. Fire forged us. It shrunk our guts, grew our brains, and gave us the gift of time. From a wild, terrifying force of nature to the controlled flame of a rocket engine, fire didn't just keep us warm. It gave us the space to think, to imagine, and to create the entire modern world.